What's going on, YouTube? This is SG1 Sports, and you're watching our Big Ten channel. Going to talk about the Washington Huskies as they enter the Big Ten, and if this team will be better or worse than they were last season. Of course, they lose their head coach, they lose a lot of players, so it's hard to imagine this team being better, but we'll still kind of run through it here, and I'll give you my initial thoughts on this team. Of course, 14-1 last year, only loss coming in the national championship. They were first in the Pac-12, and we'll start with the offensive side of the ball. So we start with, of course, Michael Penix. He's going to be gone. They'll bring in Will Rogers at quarterback. Nothing against Will Rogers. I think he'll do fine. I don't think he's going to be a bad quarterback or anything like that, but I think maybe he comes in a little bit overrated because he put up all those big numbers under Mike Leach, and I think that was really more of a system thing. We'll see. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe I'm wrong here. Again, I think he'll be solid, but I don't know that he's going to come out and put up huge numbers. And so, you add him at quarterback, obviously a drop off from Michael Penix, even if Rodgers turns out to be really good. I don't think he's going to be Michael Penix. And then, the new coaching staff with Jed Fish, how is all that going to work? We'll see. It's very early to really even be talking about this team, but again, just some initial thoughts. Running back room, I think, looks good. They do lose Dylan Johnson, but they were pretty deep there. They got a lot of players. They bring in a transfer from Arizona, so I think they'll be just fine at running back. At wide receiver, they're going to miss Jalen McMillan, Odunze, Polk. They're going to miss those guys big time. They do bring Giles Jackson back, a speedster, and he might be their go-to guy. They also have a transfer wide receiver that I think will help them out coming in from Cal, and that's Jeremiah Hunter. And so, the passing game, it's just not going to be what it was last season. I mean, it's just not. Tight end position, lose a couple of really good players there as well. Offensive line, they lose a lot. It's going to be tough for this team, I think, offensively, at least compared to where they were last year. I don't think that there's any way that this Washington team is anywhere close to as good as they were last year offensively. Again, they're going to lose their top 3 offensive linemen and had several other players enter the transfer portal. And it's also early. They could add some players in the transfer portal that they haven't done yet. After spring, we expect more transfer portal movement, of course. And so I'm not going to give up on this team and say they're going to be bad. But as of right now, I think it's definitely a big drop from last season on the offensive side of the ball. I think absolutely 100% this team will be worse offensively. Now we'll go to the defense, and this is an area where they really weren't great last year, but they do lose some really good players. They lose some 3 guys on the defensive line that were big time contributors for them. Really their best 3 defensive linemen all going to be gone. They do have, all right, linebacker looks pretty good. They bring back Tupatala, and I'm sorry if I say names wrong. Carson Bruner also be back. So you do bring back a couple of good linebackers there. Ulafosio, and again, I know I'm saying that name wrong, but he's gone. He was a really good player, athletic guy there at linebacker. So you lose one player at linebacker, but everyone else will be back. So that's the good news. Linebacker position looks pretty strong. They also brought in a transfer from San Jose State. Really don't know much about him. And also Ethan Barr from Vanderbilt. So a couple of linebackers coming in. I expect that group to be just fine. And again, defensive line loses some great players. Linebacker looks to be pretty good. Then you go to the secondary. Jabbar Muhammad, he's gone. He went in the transfer portal. Dominic Hampton at safety, he's gone. Those are probably their 2 best players in the secondary, and so they're definitely going to miss them. And this is the secondary that wasn't great last year anyways. Asa Turner's gone. Vincent Nunley, these players entered the transfer portal. Powell is also gone. Javion Green, a cornerback, he's gone. So they lose a lot in the secondary. And then you look at what they added in the transfer portal. Not a ton. Price Scott from Arizona, a cornerback. Jordan Shaw from Arizona, a cornerback. So that'll help out. But I still think there's going to be a bit of a drop there in the secondary. So if you look at the defense overall, defensive line, probably a drop there. Linebacker looks solid there. That's the good news. And the secondary, probably a little bit of a drop off. Again, although this wasn't a great secondary last year. But then you have to look at the coaching staff and, how is all that going to play out? Maybe they get more out of these players. But roster-wise, I think this team defensively probably about the same, maybe a little bit worse. I did say about the same here because they had some depth on the defensive line. Yes, they lose some really good players, but they had some depth there. Linebackers look good. And, again, secondary really wasn't great last year, so the losses there may not mean too much. So I'm going to say about the same on defense. maybe a little bit worse, but we'll go with about the same. And then that means overall, if the defense is about the same and the offense drops off significantly, obviously this team's going to be worse. And I don't think Washington's going to be anywhere near the college football playoff. I haven't really broken down their schedule yet, but I could see them probably being an 8-4 type team, maybe a 9-3 team. Maybe if things go just right for them, maybe if Will Rogers steps in and looks like an All-American type quarterback, maybe there's a chance they could get into that playoff conversation. But looking at it right now, I think that's going to be tough. So yeah, I definitely think Washington's going to be worse. Do you guys agree? Do you disagree? Give me your thoughts on this team down in the comments below.